Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is our second of the day. I decided that we should do a second one on the day of the podcast when I have a little bit of extra time. This way, we can be sure to get you the most decks possible, especially with the OTA and patch coming this week. There's going to be a bunch of new decks, so I'm using this sort of to clear out my backlog a little bit. We're going to kick it off with the Unfit Parrot Bullseye list. Unfit Parrot created this really cool Bullseye list. It's not that different than the other ones, but it's worth noting that it runs Wong, which is an extra Series 3 card, instead of one of the higher series cards that we're seeing in a lot of other versions. No Victoria Hand here, no Grandmaster, which are the expensive cards that we are seeing in the spot. Instead, we have Wong, and Wong opens up some extra cool play lines, which is very nice. Wong basically allows you to get a really big Dokken and an absurdly big Morbius on the board, which is very, very effective. We're going to let you know that you can check out Unfit Parrot playing this list at youtube.com/that exact name. This deck needs Dokken and Bullseye, which means if you got the season pass and got Bullseye, you've got access. Meek and Scorn are good, but Mystique, Grandmaster, Helicarrier are all perfectly acceptable replacements. Meek, in this case, is really solid to copy that Morbius, and then you could always do some silly Wong Mystique things if you wanted to with Gambit, for example, if that was where you wanted to go. With this at high infinite, 19 and 8, 68% was Parrot's record. Turn 1, you can play Meek. Blade if Swarm or Sword. Turn 2 is Collector, generally over Mobius, unless your turn counter is really, really tight. Generally speaking, though, you can play Morbius on turn 5 if you need to. You can play Colleen if Swarm or Scorn here as well. Turn 3, Bullseye is generally speaking your goal. You can play Dokken, but you don't really want to. You want to play Dokken on Wong if possible to get the extra shard. If you have Wong and a discard, you should almost always hold Dokken. Bullseye is fine, so is a turn 2 play. Turn 4, your goal is Wong. Turn 4 is the only turn you can really afford to play Wong as a general rule, though. So if you don't have him by turn 4, unless there's an extra turn or extra energy, you're probably not going to end up playing him. You can also do a 3 or 2 twos. If you played Collector earlier, this can be your Morbius Colleen turn, for example. You can, if you didn't draw Wong, drop Bullseye or Dokken if you haven't yet. Turn 5 is your last chance to play Dokken. So if you played Bullseye on 3, Wong on 4, you want to Dokken on Wong here. You can also, at that point, start to discard Swarms and Scorn using cards like Blade or Colleen. Or if you played Collector earlier, you can drop Morbius now. Please remember, if you're dropping Collector on 5 with Dokken, to play Collector before Dokken, thus you don't give up 2 extra power, as Dokken makes those shards and Collector gets +2 power. Turn 6 is, generally speaking, MODOK and a 1. This is, even if you're just playing Meek and MODOK alone, your Meek will often be 7 to 12 power because you can MODOK right on that Wong and get double discard of a million swarms, which is plenty. You also want to trigger your Bullseye to discard a bunch of swarms as well. So if you can get double MODOK and Swarm, your Collector, your especially with obviously Swarm in hand, your Collector, your Morbius, and your Dokken are all huge, as is your Meek, which is usually enough to win games. That's basically the gist of this list. We're going to look at a Hela list that peaked at rank 2 right after this, but this is a very, very cool list that is worth checking out. Props to Parrot for coming up with the idea of throwing Wong into this, which works way better than I thought it would. Before we get to that next deck, I'm going to ask you to hit that sub button if you're willing. The bottom right-hand corner of the screen has a YouTube symbol. If you hit that, you're subscribed. We give you more Marvel Snap videos than anyone, as my alarm decided to go off. Excuse me. My alarm telling me to make this video, in fact. Please hit that sub button. We do more Marvel Snap content than anyone. We do at least 7 days a week of Marvel Snap videos. This week, we've done 10 videos. That's right, 10 full-length Marvel Snap videos, 5 Marvel Snap articles, multiple streams, almost every day a stream. If you want the most Marvel Snap content, hit that sub. Again, the YouTube button at the bottom right corner. We are also giving away a season pass this week. Tomorrow's video will give away this week's version of the season pass. All you have to do is sub, like, and then later this video, I'm going to ask you to make a comment. You make that comment, you are entered to win the season pass. You can get Iron Patriot and Dokken from that. And finally, last thing before we get to that deck, promise, we are hosting a tournament. It kicks off Monday, so this is your last chance to join. It only requires 1 game a week, and you can win up to $400 in prizes. Make sure you join the Discord or the Patreon if you are interested. All right, but Hela. Yeah, you know Butt. Butt's been one of the top players in Marvel Snap. He plays completely wild and insane decks all the time, but he's also one of the best players. He won Snap Judgments League twice. This is a stellar Butt list that uses Hela in order to win games in Marvel Snap. It is wildly effective. It's a little worse while everyone is playing currently Bullseye, but Bullseye shall be going away in a few days, or Bullseye shall not be as prominent in a few days as the new card comes out. So I wanted to make sure I got you the rank 2 Hela list. But is again rank 2. This deck needs Blink, Gore, and Malekith. You need 3 high series cards to make this work. Zemo is great, but Gladiator, or the biggest 3 you've got, is perfectly fine. Iron Patriot can be Cable or Mirage. Morbius was in here at some point, but Morbius was never really getting big enough to be worthwhile. Let's go card by card before we go turn by turn. So Blade's general job here is to be a nice cheap discarder that can get rid of a target. Remember, Hell is only bringing back 1 of each cost, right? So that means you can get rid of one of your 3s with Blade, whether that be Morph or Baron Zemo, generally speaking. Swordmaster, you don't want to get rid of Blade, but Swordmaster to get rid of Ronin is an absolutely stellar play, right? Blade is your sort of like get rid of anything because both Swordmaster and Silver Samurai are hyper specific targeted. So Blade will do a good job at chucking extra cards. Of is the third card on the list, Maximus. Maximus is just really good stats. 2/6 is the best base stats on a 2-drop. The 2-draw is bad for you, but if it comes back at the end of the game with Hela, it's all of a sudden good for you, especially as people are playing a lot of card generation and thus have really full hands, whether it be with Swarms or Kate Bishop's Arrows or whatever. That plus Maximus equals a huge Ronin. You end up with like a 15, 17 power Ronin, and you get 6 power from Maximus when you play Hela. That's usually a win. That's like a 21, 22 power play, even not counting everything else. Iron Patriot's here because Iron Patriot's good, and you have a lot of ability to win that Iron Patriot lane. The main way is Swordmaster, but you also have Baron Zemo and Morph. Sometimes you're going to play that card, sometimes you're not, but sometimes it's also just a free card. And having the ability to play a free card, particularly in a deck that plays Blink, is extremely powerful. Even if that card costs 1 and you don't see Hela, you can play it and blink it off on the last turn of the game in order to get Hela. It's an absolutely stellar play. And again, between Iron Patriot, Morph, Zemo, Swordmaster, you have absolutely excellent ability to get that Iron Patriot card for yourself. Morph and Zemo are not meant to be played early. You're honestly really trying to discard one. If you can discard one, however, you are ahead. Zemo at the end of the game is almost always grabbing a big thing, as most of the smaller things will be drawn out of the deck, while Morph will get something big that's just been sitting in hand at the end of the game. Either one of those is absolutely great as an end game play. They are also perfectly fine on turn 3 as ways to make sure you win that Iron Patriot lane, and we just discussed the value of that. Swordmaster is huge. 3/7 after the 2/3 is usually going to win that Iron Patriot lane, unless your opponent had some other shenanigans in it, like a Juggernaut or something. So that's a great way to go about winning that lane. In addition, you're perfectly fine, as discussed, discarding Morph and Zemo. The other card you really want to discard is Ronin, because bringing Ronin back as the 5 is huge. You don't especially want to discard Blink. You will as things happen, but your goal is not to discard Blink or Blade. Your goal is to discard the other odds, so be a little careful doing so. Silver Samurai is here largely because it is very easy to discard Gore with Silver Samurai. Gore as a -1 is almost always going to be the lowest cost card in your hand. If you can discard Gore, it's also relatively safe from Fenris Wolf because literally any other discard will be what Fenris brings back. Fenris does not see Gore's ongoing power. So if you are worried about a Fenris and you're going to discard with Silver Samurai, make sure you discard something else as well. You will be able to mess with opponents in that manner. Next up, we have Malekith. We discussed earlier how good it was to get Maximus, Morph, and Zemo at the end of the game. That's sort of what Malekith's text is. Malekith is fundamentally a 4/12 if you play it for Maximus, 4/11 for Zemo, plus the extra card, which is almost certainly going to be more than one unless you're unlucky to get a hood, right? So generally speaking, at least a 4/13 or so, and then who knows with Morph, it could be literally anything. So there's a lot of upside to Malekith, while it also does a great job at drawing you closer to Hela and being a solid blink target in and of itself. Ronin big, people play lot cards this meta, plus Maximus. Blink is your I didn't see Hela fixer. It's also just really, really good with Malekith. If you didn't see Gore or Hela, using Blink to go get that card is obviously, or Ronin, using Blink to go get that card is extraordinarily powerful. That's fundamentally what it's here for. Don't hesitate again to play it with an Iron Patriot card at the end of the game as required. Gore big. Blade on reveal. Iron Patriot on reveal. Maximus on reveal. Morph could be anything. Zemo on reveal, potentially 2 on reveal. Swordmaster on reveal. Silver Sable on reveal. Malekith on reveal. Blink on reveal. That's basically everything but Ronin and potentially Morph. So Gore big, plus opponent's cards. And then Hela as a 6/9 brings back a lot of power with this list, and thus is very effective. So this peaked at rank 3 with 3 KCL, again, but is at the top of the Infinite leaderboard, absolutely crushing with this list. Oh, wait, that was yesterday's. This peaked at rank 2, and But's like collection complete. All right, so turn 1, you want Blade if Ronin or Maximus. Turn 2, you want Iron Patriot over a 1-drop, ideally not Maximus. Turn 3, Swordmaster for Ravone or Zemo. For Ronin or Zemo. And if not, you can play Zemo or Morph, and you really would like to discard the other or have the other show up for your Malekith. Turn 4, if you can Samurai for Gore, you should probably do so. Malekith is very good if no Hela, and depending on what's in deck, you don't really want to hit Blade with Malekith. If you do, the world does not end, but it is not your goal. Hitting Blade and Iron Patriot is your like fail states. Hitting Maximus, Ronin, Zemo, Swordmaster are your success states. You especially like Malekith if you're going to blink because it gets a card out and lets you blink as well. Turn 5, you either blink, you drop Ronin, or you can do one of the turn 4 plays. Let's say you hit Malekith and you drew Silver Samurai for that in-hand whatchamacallit, Gore. You can now drop Silver Samurai on turn 5 just fine as well. Turn 6, your goal is to Hela or blink for Hela as a general rule. If you must drop Gore and Gore wins, that's fine, but that's usually not your goal. That's this list. This is awesome. Props to the great Butt for coming up with it and riding this to the top of the Infinite leaderboard. He's been at number 2 with nothing but meme decks, but these meme decks are effective if you learn how to play them and snap and retreat effectively. If you'd like to see a stream, I am going to be streaming today. In fact, I'm probably streaming right now as this is live. So please check out my stream live on Twitch or on YouTube. I should be on both today, assuming that the YouTube chat is working properly. So check it out, twitch.tv/PulseGlazer, or right here on this YouTube. I asked Friday Night Plans yesterday. Today, I'm going to ask what your favorite thing you're doing this weekend is. So I always like to change the question here. Sometimes the question will say something and then I'll change it to something else. And I like to do that because it lets me know who's like actually watching and who's just pausing. But hey, what's your favorite thing that you're going to do this weekend? What are you going to enjoy most that you do this weekend? All right, we're going to finish this up with Ava Dino Hand. This is a Victoria hand list that also runs Devil Dinosaur. This is reasonably similar to yesterday's deck, but it's got, honestly, like 3 different cards that I think make it worth talking about. 4-ish cards that make it worth talking about. It doesn't run quite as much generation, but it takes advantage of Mystique, and Mystique has several really good targets here. Those targets being Mr. Fantastic, Victoria Hand, or Devil Dinosaur. Cosmo gives you extra power. Iron Lad and Mystique give you chances to hit the power cards extra well. And obviously, that Mystique works really well with Moonstone. So there's a lot of combo for a lot of power in this list, and I think it's really cool and worth looking at. It doesn't run a ton of generation, but you don't need a lot because it gets buffed so much. You can find Ava at twitch.tv/Avazord. He was very successful with this list at Infinite. This deck needs Victoria Hand, Moonstone, Cape. Valentina, Iron Patriot can be Mirage or Sentinel. Iron Lad can be Agent Coulson or Moon Girl. Turn 1 Snowguard, turn 2 Victoria Hand if Mystique is better than Iron Patriot, is better than Kate, is better than Valentina. The benefit of playing Mystique here over Frigga is very simple. You don't get the +2 on the card, but you do get an easier curve because you have to Frigga and then replay the card, so you get a much cleaner curve, and Mystique can hit multiple other cards fairly effectively without any delay. Turn 3, you want Mystique if Kate, Fantastic if not. A 2-drop is perfectly fine here. Valentina is often reasonable on turn 3, as is one of the Snow Guard birds. Valentina in this case is good because it gives you that on turn 4 if you're missing Moonstone or Lad. You can play Moonstone on 4, ideally on a Victoria Hand on a Fantastic, something along those lines, which means middle lane. You can play Iron Lad if you're missing Moonstone and are missing other key cards. Decent thing to do is if you played an ongoing last and you don't have Mystique, you can play Lad. If Lad reveals, it will copy that last ongoing just fine. Or you can drop 2/2s. This is a decent time for like Iron Patriot and Kate or Iron Patriot and Valentina. Part of the reason it's such a good time for Iron Patriot on turn 4 is turn 5, you can just drop a Devil Dino on that lane. You're usually going to win it. You can also generate cards if you haven't yet, or if you already generated cards, you can play Hand and Mystique here. Turn 6, Mystique for Dino and generated stuff, or Dino and a 1, or sort of whatever you've got left in your hand that makes sense to play for a bunch of power. And then you win, because this is a really cool list from the great Avazord, and I hope you like it. Hey, if you'd like to see gameplay from all of these lists, check out the stream team. This morning, earlier, Fawthor Newman streamed a bunch of games of Snap for all the decks this week, and tomorrow, Obi Haved will be playing these lists, so make sure you check out Obi tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. All right, questions of the day. Question 1, Fables asks for tips making better predictions and reads. So, how do you know what your opponent's playing? The main thing you need to do to know what your opponent's playing is really know the meta. The way I suggest you do this is there's 2 real ways, right? You take a look. Dan every week puts out a tier list in Marvel Snap. Read that tier list. Make sure you know all the lists in it. Practice if you need to use a pen and paper. Feel free if you need to use a notes app, whatever. Practice how early you can predict what deck the opponent's playing. If you see your opponent play, I don't know, Victoria Hand, see how long it takes you to figure out which variant of that list it is, and so on and so forth. It is harder than ever to make predictions in reads, however, because there's a lot of card generation, and card generation makes things complicated. You're just going to have to sort of memorize ranges of outcomes. You have to say, they can potentially go very big here, right? If you can do that, you should be okay. Just sort of avoiding that lane. Know how much space they have and how much that allows too. Fairly often, if there's only one spot in a lane, unless they have like a Gore or a Devil Dinosaur or something, I know that if I have a little commitment there, it doesn't look like I can compete there, and a lot of people won't see that I'm competing there. And I know that I can place multiple high power cards there, especially if I'm playing something like Victoria Hand, right? I can place multiple high power cards there that will make a lane that didn't look like a threat a threat. The last thing is good players know this. You generally, for most decks, want to try and win two lanes. You want to try and only really compete two lanes. Any power put in an extra lane that you don't win is dead power. It doesn't count. Like, it doesn't do anything for you, right? Losing another lane by one, losing every lane by one is still losing. You want to try and win two lanes, and you want as much power as possible in two lanes. Your job is to sort of misdirect and figure out how to do that, and then figure out if your opponent knows that. One of the best ways to win in Marvel Snap is to figure out if your opponent is trying to win two lanes or all three lanes. If they're trying to win all three lanes, most decks can just go over the top. But also, you need to know the range of power outcomes for a deck, right? There was a Twitter post the other day of someone complaining that Bullseye wasn't very good because they lost to a Mr. Negative that saw Negative, Magic, and Jane Foster. Almost no deck in the game without a counter is beating that combo, right? So you need to know the range of outcomes. If you're playing a mid-range deck, you need to know my deck can get to 26-ish in each lane, while this deck, if it goes off, is going to get to 35-ish in each lane. They played a Wong, they played a Negative, they played one of those big power amplifiers. And know that you can't beat that. One last tip is sometimes opponents will show enough power in lane early that they think they can abandon it late. This happens reasonably often with the card Iron Man. If they play an Iron Man lane and you don't have to show any power there, you can trick opponents fairly often into thinking you're going to abandon that Iron Man lane, that other lane, and then they're trying to win it with like 16, 18 power, right? Which is something you can easily go over the top of. If you can add power late, you can often go over the top of that. It's something I do with bounce a lot. Mother Trucker Jim asks about spending money in Snap given long-term uncertainty. Um, I am of two minds about this. They're both like in the same direction, but the first one is fundamentally, yeah, you'll be fine. Um, Snap can close at any minute, right? But like, so can Amazon, so can your bank. It's a myth that these things are as sturdy as we think they are. We like to pretend that all these institutions we built are reality, but they're basically built on people's words and confidence in them, and any of them can collapse at any time. You just sort of deal with that. I understand the extra level of concern about Marvel Snap right now, but they will find a new publisher. This game is not going anywhere from anything I've heard. There is no real reason to assume that you're not safe to spend in Marvel Snap in the ways that you would be most comfortable. Through to your support on our Patreon, come with honor. Thanks. I gotta say thank you to Abigail Geeson, Mandatory Burnout, Irregardless, David G. Wingfield, Dirty Casual, LAB, Fathorn Newman, as I lost my place, Fathorn Newman, Inc., I Am Frostman, Hote Navarrete, YOLO Potato, Thinking Poker, Prime Brian, Ryan Burke, and Ryan Wood, Kirtix Lee, Quire, Kazushi, Archangel 3K, Pyrophros, The Goat Seeker, Hollowed, Quid, Pro, Joe, Synth. Oh, I put Synth in that spot. Synth, hi Synth, Snap Decisions Joe, Fat Nick, Mr. Kerfuffle, Kerf. Cables, Ginger Prime, Ginger, what's up, man? Philip Rakovich, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of the Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Biz Up, Black Jeebus 23, Exorcy and Skippy G, Rhyming Friends. Hey, Jess, Uncle Gamble, Slush Death, Mr. If You Nasty, The King of Bros, The Great Kazoo, Werewolf, Kepsi Hoda, Lunar Chris, Corbin, John Q, Jim McHugh, Cute Down, Clam, Colonel Forbin, Yistout, 8th, Sage, Models Mod Supreme, The Green Goblin, Unibot, Flan 56, Steven, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B, Real Name Town ends there with Only Fox, what's up Fox, The Fuzzy Dump, Spectrum X, Wood, Matt H, what's up Matt H, DJ Mikey Hijinks, No Freaking Flex, Oculars, Mr. Craig Sterry, BG, Zodrex, check him out on Twitch, please. The King of Canada on Twitch, Denman Falcon on YouTube, Jonesy on YouTube, The Great Two Ties, our friend Laura Devs, the Parrot King Tucker, and of course Gunny T, where the T stands for. Y'all, this was fun. Hopefully you enjoyed the second video Saturday. Let me know if you prefer this or you want just the podcast on Saturday if you would like to. Thanks for watching. Hit that sub button. See you tomorrow. Peace.